Hi, AJ Hartley here, novelist, Shakespeare professor, music fan, and Atarashii Gakko fan. And what I'm going to do today is a little bit different. Back in November when I saw Atarashii Gakko live in DC, I got chatting to other fans, and one of the great things about being at a live show is that you get to meet other people who are invested in the same things that you are. And you get talking, and one of them I realized was somebody whose cover versions of some AG songs I had seen before on YouTube. Her name is Chesca. She performs as mypilotis, and she has just released her debut single. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to take a moment to catch up with her, talk about the songwriting process, about fandom, and to promote the song, which I think is terrific. Enjoy. Hi, I'm delighted today to have a special guest, Chesca, who is effectively the sole person behind mypilotis. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you have just released your debut single, which I have been playing for a while and telling people that they should listen to it, and I think it's wonderful. And can you talk? Let's start talking a little bit about that. Where did that particular song come from?
So The Way I See You, I started writing that I think around 2020, because 2020, 2021, during that time, I experienced like trying to go a little personal in depth of it. So there was obviously some tough times during those years for a lot of people too. And then in my particular case, there was a period of like loss and grief, and then just kind of a personal slump. So basically, The Way I See You, I wanted it to still feel upbeat and still kind of something that you'd like to, have a good vibe to, something that's danceable. But what the song is really about is kind of like a love letter to yourself, as if you're speaking to yourself from a different time or a period that, things are okay.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. Some people do interpret it as like a love letter to someone, like a particular someone. You can interpret it that way. But my intent of it was more like a love letter to the self, that you're worthy, you're more than enough. So it's just kind of like, don't be too hard on yourself at this time. So
that's terrific. I think the balance of, as you say, that sort of the upbeat quality to it, but that sense of a kind of heartfelt tenderness is really, really clear. I think that comes across really well. I think it's terrific.
I appreciate you listening to that one too, because sometimes friends do play it and blast it in front of me, and I do tend to run away. It's like hearing yourself and like, I don't want to listen to it.
Yeah. I know that feeling. Yeah. So let's just back up a little bit, and maybe we'll come back to the song and talk some more. But we sort of met for the first time at the Atarashii Gakko show in Washington, D.C. in November, which is all kinds of bizarre. And I was talking primarily to your husband. So that's how we sort of made the initial connection. But I had seen you doing cover versions of songs and things on YouTube before, so. So, you know, that obviously this song, even though this is your debut, hasn't come out of nowhere. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started in music and the various instruments that you play and how you use them?
Oh, okay. So it goes quite way back. I didn't initially play the guitar. It was actually the violin at first, maybe I want to say fourth grade, because typical Asian American parents, they want to pick an instrument to, you know, here, go to school, learn an instrument. So violin was one of them, and have been in orchestra for pretty much the entire time I've been in school until high school.
And you're in Texas, right?
Yes.
And born and raised in that
born
area?
and raised in the Philippines, and then we moved to we weren't actually supposed to move to Texas. We were visiting my my half sister in Austin, and then she managed to convince my dad to move here because he was retired Navy. And he just like, all right, kids, we're just moving. I'm like, what about our stuff back then? So it was kind of a sudden thing, but it worked out. I think it was a good transition. It just took a bit to get used to.
Okay.
Yeah, but
so I'm sorry, I kind of sidetracked us there. So you started on violin and then moved into rock and pop and such as
well. Because I like playing, listening to a lot of music too. Because initially, I'm trying to remember. So apart from the violin, we got an acoustic guitar from Toys R Us, one of those first act tiny acoustic ones. So that's what got me started in guitar. And then I started, I don't know, I like playing along to songs that I like, initially through tabs, and that's how I learned. So I think a lot of musicians tend to go that route too, because that is the cheap, free way to learn guitars, through tabs and just trying to play along with some of your favorite songs and learning through that way. But I haven't really played with a full band for my own stuff. Initially with the acoustic guitar, that was my primary. So a lot of my songwriting was just more catered towards like acoustic alternative. So I didn't get to explore different genres because I just had limited instruments at the time. So it was like bossa nova, some jazz standards here from time to time, and then like, I don't know if you know this New Zealander artist Bikramka.
I don't think so.
So it was basically just like an acoustic alternative genre was my shtick back then. And then when I graduated from college and was able to work and financially support myself, then that's where I kind of collected these instruments. And then so now
I as I say, I've seen some of your videos, and you know, it's impressive to see you sort of switching from instrument to instrument. That's something I'm tempted to do from time to time, but I'm not good enough, I don't think.
Oh, I don't know. I feel like anyone could just, like, if the want is there, there's definitely that yearning to learn something and make something with it, which I found interesting, like, throughout this process, because before getting the drums, anytime I listen to something, I'll just air drum it and try to feel it out until I finally purchase, like, oh, it actually feels great doing it for real.
Are they entirely acoustic, or are they an electric drum?
Electric. For the drums are electric.
Right, that's what I thought.
My house has pretty thin walls, and I didn't want to disturb the neighbors.
Is that a Hofner bass on your wall? Is that a Hofner or a Rickenbacker bass on your wall?
Oh, that's one. It's a Hofner. Yes.
It is a Hofner. I have an old Hofner guitar from, like, the, I don't know, 1940s or something. Yeah.
It would sound great.
It was the guitar I learned on. It doesn't sound great anymore, unfortunately. But yeah, cool instrument.
Yeah.
So tell me about the songwriting process. I always ask when I'm talking to musicians, where does the idea for a song start for you? Is it melody? Is it an idea? Is it a lyric? What?
For me, primarily melodies. Um, and then so like I'll have a an earworm melody that just kind of sticks. Sometimes I'll let it pass for a day, and if it comes back, then I'm like, okay, maybe this is something that's good. If it doesn't come back to me, then I think, you know, it's probably not meant to be. I'll just let it go.
But you
um,
start with the melody in your head. You don't find it through an experimentation with chords or whatever.
Sometimes I do. So sometimes when I'm playing, I'll just find some random thing, and if it sounds good, like, huh, I wonder what I could build from that. And then as far as wording goes and lyrics, I start making some rhythmic gibberish, pick out random words. It doesn't have to connect, or just words that feel good, and then eventually try to make sense out of it. So that's how I try to build um I don't know, the pacing, the rhythm of it. Because sometimes I'll just pick English words here and there. They don't make sense as a sentence at all. But it feels good rhythmically, and then build melodies from there. And then I'll write some words down that sticks, and then actually write proper English.
Mm-mm. So, am I right in thinking that English is not your first language,
Correct. It's Tagalog,
right?
but in the Philippines, the education system, though, primarily does teach in English too. So
Mm.
there's the whole bilingual aspect of it growing up, but primarily Tagalog was that one.
But obviously, I mean, you're perfectly comfortable communicating in it. Do you ever write do you write a Philippine song?
I have I have maybe two
Yeah.
that back then when I used to do acoustic stuff. They're unreleased, but I've been trying to steer away from like just the whole acoustic alternative genre and try to make more indie out of it. But maybe I'll come back
Yeah,
and
yeah,
make
yeah.
it too.
Well, and speaking of coming back, I mean, obviously this is your first single and it's great. Um, is there more in the works? Is there the possibility of an EP or an album or
So I do have a couple of other tracks that I've played live um, in the show that I did in January. So I do plan to record those properly as well, and eventually release an EP or something, but I don't have a timeline per se. But I do want to make it so it's not a 10-year gap before releasing
Mhm.
something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for sure I'm targeting something again, um, maybe within the next 2 quarters or something.
Okay.
And if only you could I could see if only I do.
So tell me about how you actually recorded this song. Again, is this all you, or did you have a studio band, or?
No, it's just mainly here in my little office too. So guitars I plug in directly to an audio interface. So I don't know. So I'm just, by the way, I have a collection of
Right?
guitar and stuff, but I use a Focusrite audio interface over here that I directly plug in my guitar to instead of going through an amp.
I was going to say, so you're not miking an amp.
Right,
It's
correct.
almost like you're plugging into GarageBand or the equivalent thereof.
Yes. And personally, I use Logic Pro X, and
Right.
then there's a lot of like presets and preamps. I don't know what they're called. The little amplifier effects on it too. So
Mhm.
that's where I write my stuff down.
Voices and what have you. Yeah.
Voices, guitar, bass, and then as far as drums, I'll use this one to try to draft out the beats that I want. But I don't particularly like the sound straight from that. So what I would do is write the draft as an audio, and then from there, then I'll go into Logic Pro X and add the separate bass sounds that I like to match that pattern to get the audio quality that I was wanting to reach for. As far as mixing, I try to do it as best as I could, but that's not really my forte. So when I get it to a point where I'm mostly comfortable with, but still need some tweaking, then I'll pass it off to an audio engineer to help me out with the mixing and mastering. So
Yeah, yeah. I wonder. I was wondering about that because that's something I know nothing at all about. Every time
I'd
I
like
try to
to,
record something, I'm like, I have no idea how to engineer this.
I'd
Make
like
it
to
sound.
eventually too.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
But
and what about distribution?
distribution, DistroKid was what was recommended to me. So that's what I ended up using. And it seemed to be a fairly easy route to start off with, especially for just independent artists, kind of like a DIY thing. And they'll send it off to uh, all the streaming platforms. And then you just kind of have to provide your track and cover art, any other
Mhm.
information too. By the way,
Right.
I want to give a shout out to my friend Hayne. She's the one who did my cover artwork, and she was actually also at the show in DC.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
she actually followed them too when we were in Tokyo for their first arena show. And then she went to like New York, DC, I think Toronto also, Chicago, and then the whole
Okay,
tour.
so this is the obvious natural segue, right?
Sorry, yeah, I was just like,
Yeah,
I
from musician into fandom and the way that these things inform each other. Because I mean,
Hmm.
as you know, I'm a big Atarashii Gakko fan, but I'm sure that a lot of people looking at you and what you produce and the way you produce it and your emphasis on instruments and so on would find Atarashii Gakko sort of a surprising influence for
Yeah,
you, right? So where did that come from? How long have you been following them and what's the appeal?
man. So Kate, my husband, is the one who got me into Atarashii Gakko at first last year. Because we there was a video floating around when Suzuka went to the Philippines when she was like Gusto ko sabihin sa mundo for the pineapple kryptonite bit, and she's repeating it multiple times. So we thought that was funny, but at that point, it didn't click that that was Atarashii Gakko. We just thought this was like a funny group.
Huh.
And then the first take video came out for Otona Buru, and then he showed that to me again, and it still didn't click that that was the same person, that was the same group. So, but I think what really got me was of course, their performance is amazing, their choreography and the fact that they do it themselves. But I think what sets them apart is also their personality. So the
Mhm.
part where in that video, Suzuka was just kind of like messing with the members too. I was like,
Mhm, mhm.
these people are great. This is what it wasn't. I wasn't expecting this at all. Um, and then she also has the same glasses as I did, funnily enough. People think that I wear this because of Suzuka, but actually I've had this since 2016. But I was
Yours
like,
are real glasses.
these are real. It's
Yes,
hard for me to see.
but hers are not, right?
Hers are not. Initially, she had like fake lenses, I guess, but now there's no lens in it at all for.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
But
you're a comparatively recent fan
yes, people
to
are
have,
surprised.
but
Yeah,
you went in deep.
we got into a rabbit hole with that. I imagine a lot of people had the same experience too, like
Mm.
first impressions, and then you just become kind of, I don't know. It's a strange addiction at this point, for both of us too. I'm sure maybe for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, I have not seen them as many times as you have. I mean, you've seen them a lot just this in the last 12 months, right?
Yeah, it would be. Sometimes I wonder, like, man, it's crazy. I've never followed a group this much. Like, I would see musicians and artists if they come near Austin or San Antonio, but never to a point where I would travel to like where they are,
Mm-mm.
um, just to see them live too. I don't know. It's strange, but it also, I think, makes you feel youthful. Because I'm in my early 30s right now. So at that point where you see a lot of musicians and artists like in their early 20s, at some point before I thought maybe it's too late for me."
Mm.
But when I do see them and they have their message like, you know what, we have this one life, just do what you enjoy regardless of what stage in life that you are. That's what station is, right? It's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't just belong to school kids. It's for
Yeah.
everyone. So,
Yeah.
and you can see that too in their fandom, right? There's just so much diversity and.
It was really, I mean, at the DC show, I
Mhm.
was really surprised at how diverse the audience was and how focused they were, because I kind of thought, since it's the first time that they had been playing in that area ever, that a lot of the audience would be sort of interested, curious,
Hmm.
but not really invested. And that was not the impression that I had at all. I mean, certainly just being in line with people before the show, these were sort of pretty serious fans. And I was surprised also because many of them had only been fans for about a year. I mean, I've been listening to them for 3.5 years or so now. And so I've seen this sort of sudden spike, and it's kind of odd, to sort of try and explain it, because for a long time I felt like I was the only the only person outside Japan who was like that. Wasn't the case at all, but yeah, yeah.
So I'm
So,
curious to see. I wanted to ask you. So how did you get into? I'm like turning the tables. How did you first get into?
I was trying to remember when I saw some video footage of the of that. I forget where it is. It's where they're playing in the cafeteria and it's empty because it was early COVID.
Oh yes.
And so there's nobody there. They're doing a live show just for a couple of cameras.
Oh, I
And there
do.
used to be an extensive video of it online. I can't find it anymore. I think it got taken down. So there are a few fragments from it, but I can't find the actual video. And that was the first thing of theirs that I saw. And I
Mm,
was like, I was immediately, I mean, I was sufficiently impressed that I immediately bought the first two albums, which at the time
yeah.
was pretty much all there was, right? Because I think Otonna Brew and then 999,
The singles from theaters.
it was that period. That was when I first made my first video about them, just as those songs were coming out. But I was immediately taken by them before I really had a sense of who they were and what they were about. But that was going to be my next question, because their sound has varied quite a bit, and I'm interested for you as a musician, which is the AG stuff that you like best?
Mm, I do like the first two albums personally.
Mm,
Because I don't know, it has a mix of jazz and rock down to it. It just kind of reminds me of I don't know, it's kind of I mean they're all even their new stuff is pretty punchy, but I think back then when they collaborated with HZ Trio, a lot of those were kind of nostalgic, like maybe Showa
yep,
period-ish.
yep.
Um, and it sounded new to me because I think here in the States and the West, we're very accustomed to, trap music, a more electronic based, as opposed to more analog type of
Hmm.
music, which is what I think the first two albums. So Mayoiba Totoshi, Shikenzenya, those are my top.
Hmm.
Also, what was another one too? Masage Kanabaro. That's a fun one, but I've never seen that live. I wish I could.
Hmm.
But I think
And
it
of
was
course, we should
yeah.
talk about the song which gave you your band name.
Ah, yes, of course. I keep forgetting. So it's based off their song Piloti, which is the last track of I think there was a first
First
album.
album, yeah.
Mhm. So I think we talked about this in the email a bit too, but there I think that the meaning that piloti is, I think, also why I think they also made a song out of it is just like it's human support, which is also kind of what they do with their kumitaiso, with
Mhm.
their pyramid type of thing. But to me, that also translates apart from just being this architectural support pillar to support as a foundational structure. Um, to me, that's kind of everything that I do right now, any hobbies or activities that I do, whether it's music, pottery, bouldering, or hiking or what have you, that kind of helped me stay afloat through that difficult time when I started writing this one too. This song, The Way I See You, because that was a tough time. So I figured to get myself out of that rut mentally, all these activities, whatever have you, helped support me to stay above where I shouldn't be. And that, I think that's why it spoke to me. So, and then plus my love for AG, I kind of wanted to combine it too. So turned it to mypilotis. A lot of people mispronounce it. They say mypilotis, which I just like. And I make a joke about it with them too. It's like, yeah, I sound like some sort of medical diagnosis. But
No, I think it's great. And it's funny, as I said to you the other day, one of my patrons who had sort of sent me some questions, and one of them was, where does the title come from? And I was guessing that it was coming from that song and that sense of mutual support, the things that raise us up and connect us. I thought is a really nice way of thinking about it, and has always struck me as significant that I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the first song that they perform in which they all share the lead, where there's not a clear, lead vocal. They all have sort of they're all singing the same line all the time, and that seems to me, an emblem of solidarity and camaraderie and mutual support. So yeah, we have to. I think, and you can blame your husband for this as well, but I think, one of the first things that I heard was the shoe story.
Oh, he has been saying that like throughout the tour.
So maybe, can you give us a version of that?
Yes. I only helped a little bit, but the main hero here was San. I don't know if you met her as well. I think she might have been in front of you at the DC show.
There was a group. I didn't catch people's names, but there were some who I was chatting to. So the story begins, I want to say, in San Francisco, right?
It was in San Francisco. Unfortunately, we didn't get to go to that one. But one of Suzuka's bits, right, was she'd kick off her shoe during Seishin Kiri Sakahado, but it never came back. My friend Paul tried to give his men's size uwabaki to Suzuka. She thought it was hers. She's like, wait, no, this is men's size.
Yeah.
But anyway,
because normally she kicks it off and the audience then finds a way to get it back to the front, right?
But it's weird, like, even though she said it's not a gift, I need it back, but unfortunately it never came back. So when we were flying to New York, our friend Matt usually is the guy who brings flowers to the girls at the end of their concerts, at least in the US one, has a contact with their touring manager at the with 88 Rising. I think his name is Tim. So they were in contact for this period, I guess, and they were asking if anyone had or knows someone who knows where to get an extra pair of uwabaki. So she was flying in from Japan that same day to New York. So it wasn't like a day before thing. So Matt contacted her to see if she could help assist get uwabakis before they fly in. So it was just like a really last minute thing. Giri giri as they mentioned it. So and she was able to successfully purchase 2 right before their flight, which is like, this is a miracle for them. So she flies in, and then I think it's her first time in New York too for quite a bit of years. So we met up to pick her up from her hotel, just so she's not alone going through New York. And then we went to the venue, lining up early. And then at that point, I think somebody mentioned Tim, the touring manager, mentioned that Suzuka actually has a backup pair also, which is her last pair that she cannot lose. So I think what ended up happening was they still took the extras just in case, but what Suzuka ended up doing was she didn't want to, I guess because they went through all this trouble to get the uwabakis as a replacement. She signed the shoes in New York and gave it back to san, which is like a huge fan also, traveled all the way from Japan just to come see them during the tour, and then gave it as a present during the live shows, and she keeps it as a treasure.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I didn't really do much, except just kind of like help help her guide along through New York so we're not alone.
Right.
But yeah, it was a touching story because now she's like she has a treasure back from Suzuka. So
That's
I'm curious too. In Japan they talk about like who's your oshi, your favorite out of the group. So I was curious too.
I mean, it kind of has to, for me, it kind of has to be Suzuka because it's her personality that I think has sort of elevated the group, you know, and is one of the things that makes them most clearly not a conventional idol group.
Mm.
It's her energy and her personality and her, I mean, it's not uniquely her, obviously. I think that they're all working together, but you know, I think of them as an odd project. You know, I realize that sounds sort of odd, and I'm in sort of some of the Atarashii Gakko fan groups and Facebook groups, and this is not how most people talk about them at all. But I think that there's something really exciting and innovative and experimental about what they're doing. And I'm sure that they're all engaged in that, but it's that sort of that impulse to make art, which I
Mm.
see particularly in her. So yeah.
Yeah,
You?
same.
Yeah.
What I like them all equally. They're all such strong performers and just
Hmm.
like artists, even individually too. But I think as far as who I could relate more to, this might be a giveaway, of course, like Suzuka and Miju actually too.
Yep.
Um, but I do like what you mentioned. They're not the conventional group that you normally see out there, and I think that's what I find to be their alluring point is just that they're not afraid to just be themselves and just have fun. There's
Mhm.
no wall of trying to put up some sort of front to appeal. It's just like here I am as I am.
Yeah.
Um, take it or leave it, but I want to do this because this is what we enjoy, and then we want to share that joy with everyone else.
Yeah.
Um,
So something else I was going to ask you because I think you're the only person I've met who can answer this question. Tell me about the feel of the difference between the Tokyo show and the US shows.
oh man. Apart from set list, so okay, there's a couple of points. So the set list changes.
Yeah.
They never play Mayoe Battle Toshi as like an encore, which they always do.
I know.
I know, I was like, please.
Yeah.
It's funny because when I talk to other fans too, a lot of people want to hear it live here, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But I hope eventually that they change their mind about that one because like, we do get the meaning of what it means for the message of that song. So I do hope they do that here. And then what else is there that they don't really play a lot of the snack time songs in
In Japan.
Japan, especially for the one man live.
Yeah.
At least the smaller shows, but they did do it for their first arena and then Budokan because
Mm.
it's a pretty good chunk of their careers up to that point too. Um, and as far as crowd, like audience wise, so you know how in DC everyone's like, yeah, just like screaming their hearts out and singing along, and then just like it's kind of an equal volume, and you're trying
Yep.
to. It feels like I don't know. I don't. I sometimes I get conscious because like I hope that I don't offend them by like screaming them out of excitement and then singing along with them because I'm sure they also want to be heard themselves saying. But in Japan, as far as I think there are people who sing along, but not as rowdy. So it's like very much it is the artist's time, so it's very
Mm.
respectful of the artist letting them perform instead of like the audience performing with the with
Right.
the yeah. Um, and then energy, I don't know. It depends, because the Zepp shows, I think, would be one of the closer in comparison to the American ones. But the arena shows, oh man, there's such a big like theatrical performance that they include in their performance there too. So I know
You're so much further away, of course, isn't it?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Energy level, I think it's hard to say. It's hard to say. But definitely the set list changes. I do wish that they have that here
Are
more.
there other Japanese bands that you follow? I mean, not as closely as Atarashii Gakko, but are there other groups who you particularly like?
Oh yes. I've listened to Fuji Fabric a lot too since 2009. I think they were one of the first um Japanese artists that I listened to.
Mm,
Fuji Fabric, and I don't know if you've heard Chattomonshi.
I don't think so.
They had a song called Shangri-La, Shangri-La,
Mm.
and then I think that was my gateway to J-pop or to like J-rock, and expanded from there. There's a lot of other artists that I've been listening to lately, like Indigo La End, um, Boundy, who's also pretty popular
Mm.
lately. And then, but yeah, not as much as I closely follow Atarashii Gakko to
Are you
uh,
familiar with Glimpse Banky or Polka Dot Stingray?
Polka Dot Stingray. I've heard of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Telecaster Stripe, that was a good
Yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah. You know what? I thought that might be your kind of vibe a little bit. Yeah. I love Polka Dot Stingray, and I got to see them live last summer, and they were superb. Glimpse Banky as well, who have a sort
Oh,
of interesting kind of retro 70s kind of sound. Some of it's almost sort of psychedelic,
oh
but
man.
really cool. Yeah.
I definitely get into that too.
Two-piece band. Usually they play with support, but yeah, they're a two-piece.
It's good. There's also have you heard of Chai?
Yes, yes, yeah. Yeah.
Yes. I recently discovered them, and then I wanted to go to their shows, and I know they recently did a tour here in the US, but I missed it
Mm.
during the travels, but and then they announced that they were disbanding after their
Oh, did
most
they? I didn't hear that. I didn't know that.
yeah. It
Yeah.
looks
They're one of those groups who how can I put this? I respect more than I like.
hmm.
You know what I mean? I admire what they're doing, and the sort of spirit and what they're, about.
Hmm.
The music itself doesn't particularly do it for me, unfortunately.
Hmm.
You know.
There are some artists like that too, where if you don't see their performance live and it's just solely based on what you listen to their tracks, it has a different experience for some reason.
Mm,
But
mm,
then until you see them live, it kind of changes a bit. Because now you have that imagery whenever you listen to the song. But
mm.
yeah.
So what do you think? Uh, I couldn't help thinking when we were at the DC show that this was something I might never get to see again. Um, and by which I mean, that they've taken off to such an extent that I find it hard to imagine that they would come back and do that kind of tour, those kind of really small venues, that it would be financially worth their while to do that. What do you think? Do you think we're going to see more of that kind of tour with maybe more dates all over the country, or are we going to see them playing big venues and
Man, yeah, that's actually one of my fears too, especially as a newcomer into the fandom. Because I think I've met a couple of people like including yourself too, who's been following them for a couple of years when they play shows at the Roxy, the more smaller venues. But now that they've taken off, it's like it's gonna be so hard to fight for tickets now. Even in Japan, just like the lottery system to be able to attend their live shows is such a challenge too. And I think
Mm,
that's also the reason why they're doing the fan club tour for like the Zepp, basically a Zepp tour, which has that more
mm, mm,
intimate venues than what they currently do now. But as far as them to do this again in the US, it might be wishful thinking, but I hope they do. but I feel like the way they're going to take off now with Coachella, recently,
Right.
yeah, and then another HITC. They're coming up as headliners this time, so it's like, man, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see. And the other thing about the last tour, the Seishun tour, was that there was no sort of advance warning.
No.
It just one moment I happened to sort of glance at the site and there's like they just put tickets on sale and I was like, oh my God, we got to grab these now.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's hard to imagine when we'll get to see them next. I'm going to be in Japan again in the summer, but I think it highly unlikely that I'll get to see them.
I hope you do get to see them too. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like bittersweet that, you want to see them up close again to have that same experience, but at the same time, you also want them to, keep going
Of
far,
course. Yeah,
go on
yeah,
their mission to
yeah. I
spread
mean
the
that,
message to the
but
world,
that, I
right?
mean that DC show was intense.
It was.
And I mean, we were like in touching distance, and she's climbing all over the crowd and all that. I mean, it was wild.
And that's what I find interesting too, because even in Japan, with their bigger shows now, with the Tokyo Gymnasium, and also recently like Budokan,
Mm,
they because they know that the distance is getting farther and farther away from their fan base. But what I do highly appreciate about the thought that they put into these live performances, they think about configurations, like how could we still be able to get close to them. So
yeah,
even in I think so in the Tokyo Arena as an example, there's multiple levels, and then they surprise a lot of people in the second or third rows are like, there's no way that they're gonna come. But you never
but
know
they
what
pop
they're
up.
gonna
Yeah,
do. Yeah, they pop up and they're
yeah,
right there. So it's like, they could consider that too. And then in Budokan, it's a 360-degree venue,
yeah.
um, with multiple levels as well. So they have the flower paths in all directions. They do go across there too, so they can get close to the kind of like the middle way. There's the floor base arena, which where I was, the first level, which is where that flower path kind of gets close to, and then the third one. So I feel like they they have a mutual, I guess, appreciation, both fan and the artist kind of relationship, and I think they still cherish that regardless of how big that they're getting. I feel
Mm,
like they're so grounded that, um, I don't know. It's just like, I don't know how to explain it, but I like the appreciation that with the respect for each other, that like, regardless how big we are, we're thankful that you're here to support us, and we want to give that back
mm,
somehow.
mm, mm. Yeah. Were you at the show where they were up in the audience doing 999 all over the place, and then they came back down to do the remix of Pineapple Kryptonite, and Suzuka stopped the show because they weren't in the right position?
That was in the Tokyo,
That's
the
what so
the
you were there
arena.
for that. That
Me
was
and Kate were
wild.
there. Yeah.
I
I
love that.
Sometimes I wonder, like, if it was actually part of the show, was where Suzuka was like, no, 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 stop, stop, stop. This is what you were waiting for. Let's do this
Yeah.
correct. I think what gave it away, I don't know if it was meant to be, but there's like a little DJ record scratched right before that bit. So I don't know if it was a bit, but either way, it was great because it got
Yeah.
people saying,
So you think it might have been staged? I mean, I thought it was legit. I mean, having looked at the footage, I thought it seemed like you could see what the problem was, and it was that it was a wardrobe issue, right? That they didn't have the coats in position. That they,
in
yeah, yeah. So I mean, I thought it was real, but I don't know.
I'm thinking either way, it's like the level of professionalism that they have, whether if it was a bit part of the bit or if it was like unintentional. I think the way they carry themselves to amplified it
Yeah,
somehow and turned it around to a point where it's just like, I don't know, just the level of how they take control of their presence. So
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah. Excellent. All right. Well, I don't want to keep you and sort of monopolize your Sunday afternoon. Is there anything else that you would like to add about your music, what we should look for in the future, or any new developments on the horizon?
Mm, let's see. It's hard to talk about myself, and that's still something I'm
You
trying to
need an
work on.
agent. You need
I
a
need
PR person.
I need a spokesperson because I'm terrified. I am working on releasing another single sometime soon. Um, there's an there's a saying of look forward to it sooner than you hope. Wait. Hold on. Let me think about this for a second. It was sooner than you think, later than you hope.
Okay,
I
that's
don't
fair.
know. Sometimes.
All right,
Um,
excellent. Well,
yeah.
and the other thing I would say, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but obviously the song is available on streaming services, on Spotify and YouTube and all those kind of things. But I think that people should support you directly and buy the damn thing. So, download it. Is there ever going to be like a physical release, a CD or anything like that?
Not in the plans at the moment, but
Okay, but
people like
Apple Music, iTunes, whatever it is called these days, you
I'll
can buy
eventually
the
have it
song
also.
directly and download it. So
Mhm.
yes, that's what people should
iTunes
do.
specifically. And then I think I'll eventually have it also on Bandcamp, so there's another avenue as well
Excellent.
with graphic support. So
Terrific. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat, and I wish you a lot of luck with the song and with future endeavors. And maybe we'll chat again soon. Maybe we'll meet at an Atarashii Gakko show.
I'd love that. For sure. Thanks,
Okay.
AJ.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's it. As I said during the video, please support new and independent artists. Stream it by all means, but if you get a chance to, spend $1.29 or whatever it is on a song and download it, then it's yours to keep. I think that's a great way to support artists. And that's all I'm going to say. As ever, please like, comment, subscribe, check out my books, check out my Patreon page. Thank you to my patrons, some of whom supplied questions for this interview. And I will talk to you soon. Thanks.